The founder and former CEO of Nikola, the one-time high-flying electric truck maker, was taken into custody in New York on Thursday after he was criminally charged with defrauding investors for lying about his company's products.
Milton brazenly and repeatedly made false and misleading claims about the status of Nikola's technology. Milton tweeted a video where the truck appeared to be driving, but actually it was brought to the top of a hill and just allowed to roll down.
Trevor Milton was charged with 2 counts of securities fraud and 1 count of wire fraud. At a news conference in Manhattan, U.S. Attorney Audrey Strauss said Milton misled investors in order to elevate his stature as an entrepreneur, become one of the world's 100 richest people, and drive up Nikola's stock price.
Retail investors were listening to Milton. His statements helped convince them to buy Nikola's stock. But what they heard him say was not true.
Milton, who is still worth $1.2 billion according to Forbes magazine, stepped down as executive chairman last September, 2 weeks after a short seller labeled the company a fraud and said it had made misleading statements about its technology. At the height of Nikola's buzz, the 39-year-old struck a deal with General Motors, which just a short time later pulled out of its agreement with Milton to take an 11% equity stake in his company. Nikola shares plunged as much as 11% on Thursday. The stock has lost nearly 2/3 of its value over the past 12 months.
Hey, I'm Stephen and this is Solving the Money Problem. If you're new, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. So in today's video, we'll be doing a deep dive into the charges leveled at Trevor Milton by the United States government. I've read through the entire indictment, laying out all the formal charges against Trevor, and boy oh boy does it make for some juicy reading. So in this video, we'll run through the highlights and basically try to determine exactly how f***ed is our favorite brain-dead billionaire. So with that said, let's get into the video. If you love crypto, stocks, and free stuff, or just want to help out the channel, check out these great offers. BlockFi are launching the world's first Bitcoin rewards credit card. People in the US can earn 1.5% Bitcoin back on every purchase with no annual fee using the BlockFi Bitcoin rewards credit card. Check out the link in the description. And for a limited time, you can get up to $250 in crypto bonuses when funding a new account on BlockFi, where you can use cryptocurrency to earn interest, borrow cash, and buy or sell crypto. If you want your free crypto, use the link in the description. And if you'd like up to 2 free stocks, check out the link in the description to WeBull. If you open a new account, you'll get 1 free stock valued up to $300 just for opening an account. And if you make an initial deposit of $5 or more, you'll get a second free stock valued up to $2,000. Seriously. Free stocks? Yes, please. And finally, if you're in Australia, the UK, or New Zealand, you can get a free stock with stake, also linked in the description. Thanks so much for your support, guys. Let's get back to it. So just a quick bit of housekeeping before we get rolling. Number 1, most important of all, everything I say in this video is just my opinion only. Please do your own research. I may be hallucinating. I'm probably high. It's possible I got no sleep last night because I was busy with your sister. So in either case, assume everything I say is completely wrong. Do your own research, blah, 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 blah. Number 2, I'm not the kind of guy to kick a man when he's down. However, I'm happy to stomp on a pile of human excrement at any opportunity I get. And number 3, a little bit of insight and a great opportunity to mention my Patreon page where, for the last year or so, I was able to share my actual unvarnished thoughts about this steaming pile of vaporware and this narcissistic, sociopathic, mentally challenged con man, Trevor Teabag Milton, without concern of lawyers coming after me or getting cancelled. I have to be a little bit more delicate when I share these kind of comments on YouTube, but if you really want the unvarnished truth, my regular Q&As on Patreon, where no topic is off limits, is a great place to start. If you'd like to support the channel, get access to these regular Q&As, and even ask a question for the next Q&A, check out the link in the corner. Okay, let's get into it. United States of America versus Trevor Milton, sealed indictment. By the way, for those of you that don't know what an indictment is, it's basically the formalization of serious criminal charges, in this case leveled at Trevor Meltdown Milton. Count 1. Securities fraud. Trevor Milton engaged in a scheme to defraud investors by inducing them to purchase shares of Nikola Corporation through false and misleading statements regarding Nikola's product and technology development. Milton's scheme targeted retail investors by making false and misleading statements directly to the investing public through social media and television, print, and podcast interviews. The deceptive, false, and misleading claims by Trevor Meltdown Milton regarding the development of Nikola's products and technology address nearly all aspects of the business. So I just want to take a step back and comment on this. Let this one sink in, okay? It's not like a little white lie here or there. These charges allege that Trevor Milton basically lied about nearly all aspects of the business. So this isn't a white lie here or there. This is a Mount Everest pile of bullshit about every aspect of the business. You couldn't even make this stuff up. I mean, well, actually, that's kind of what happened. Anyway, let's move on. False and misleading statements that the company had early success in creating, quote, a fully functioning semi-truck prototype known as the Nikola 1, when Milton knew that the prototype was inoperable. False and misleading statements that Nikola had engineered and built an electric and hydrogen-powered pickup truck known as the Badger from the ground up using Nikola's parts and technology when Milton knew that was not true. False and misleading statements that Nikola was producing hydrogen and was doing so at a reduced cost when Milton knew that in fact no hydrogen was being produced at all by Nikola at any cost. False and misleading statements that Nikola had developed batteries and other important components in-house when Milton knew that Nikola was acquiring those parts from third parties. And false and misleading claims that reservations made for the future delivery of Nikola's semi-trucks were binding orders representing billions in revenue when the vast majority of those orders could be cancelled at any time and were for a truck Nikola had no intent to produce in the near term. Trevor Conman Milton, the defendant, made these false and misleading statements regarding Nikola's products and capabilities to induce retail investors to purchase Nikola's stock. As a result, some of the retail investors that Milton's fraudulent scheme targeted suffered tens and even hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses, including, in certain cases, the loss of their retirement savings or funds that they had borrowed to invest in Nikola. Once again, I want to jump in here. This is the sole reason why I created 30 plus videos on this company, trying to warn investors of what I saw as an enormous number of red flags. I would have preferred to be making content on other topics, but I couldn't let this slide. I knew there'd be people out there that were willing to gobble up all the BS being espoused by Trevor Meltdown Milton, and I felt a duty to make sure that I did everything I possibly could to try to warn people to be very cautious. Trevor Milton was motivated to engage in the fraudulent scheme in order to enrich himself and elevate his stature as a contrapreneur. Wait, did I say that word right? Contrapreneur? Yeah, I think I said that right. When Nikola's stock peaked in the wake of the announcement by Milton about the Badger, the market value of Milton's stock was at least approximately $8.5 billion. As a result of the scheme to defraud undertaken by Trevor Milton, many retail investors purchased Nikola stock based, at least in part, on false and misleading information promoted publicly by Milton. Trevor Milton was able to sell back to Nikola $70 million in additional shares in or about June 2020 when the business combination between Nikola and Vecto IQ was consummated. Jumping in here again, this was a red flag of the f***ing century. I mean, seriously, the guy's selling $70 million worth of stock before the company's delivered a single product, generated any revenue. I mean, holy hell, seriously, like, hello guys, let's move on. But by the way, if you ever see this happen again, CEO or anyone within one of these companies goes through the SPAC process, starts selling any stock at all, before they've generated revenue, sold a product, done anything meaningful whatsoever, make sure your BS detector is on red alert. The scheme to defraud. Trevor Holmes. I keep getting his name wrong. Sorry guys, you'll just have to bear with me. Every time I say the name, I mean Trevor Milton, but sometimes I just mispronounce it. I don't know what's going on there. Bernie Milton sought to fraudulently induce retail and other investors to purchase Nikola's stock by making false and misleading statements about Nikola's products and milestones on social media and in television and podcast interviews. In order to generate popular demand for Nikola's stock, Trevor Milton, the defendant, used social media and television and podcast interviews to communicate directly with potential retail investors. Once again, I want to jump in here. I called this like 4,000 times. I referred to Trevor in some of my videos as a Nikola stock fluffer, executive stock pumper, claimed that Nikola was a pump and dump scheme, so I kind of covered this. This was so obvious. I just don't know how people miss this. Anyway, let's continue. False and misleading claims regarding the Nikola 1. Trevor Meltdown claimed that the prototype Nikola 1 was a fully functioning truck. Quote, "What we did is we came out and we proved to everyone that we really did have what we promised. And that was a humongous kind of drop the mic moment for the industry. Every OEM around the world is now spending billions just to catch up because they thought that Nikola was not legitimate and now they're terrified." By the way, you'll notice through some of these quotes from this moron how many times he's projecting like it's a real truck, it's not a pusher, we're legitimate, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's just so obvious. It's really important when you guys hear claims from people, whether they're in a company or it's just some person that you know in real life. You need to be able to sniff out BS. You need to be able to notice these kind of things. It's just incredible. Quote, "Nikola was the first company to actually launch the zero-emission semi-truck back in 2016. Now, this is a quote from Trevor Meltdown, and they didn't launch anything. Oh, gosh. Oh boy. Contrary to what Trevor Milton claimed, Nikola had not successfully reached the milestones of creating a fully functioning prototype at the Nikola 1 launch event. In fact, the Nikola 1 prototype was not complete, let alone tested and validated by the time of the unveiling event. This is just horrifying to read, by the way, guys. Like, seriously, just think about the hubris, the brazen manipulation and deception involved in this as we read on. Was wholly missing significant parts, including gears and motors. I mean, shout out to the motors and gears being relatively important when you're talking about a semi-truck. And the control system, i.e. the system that communicates the driver's directions to the vehicle, was incomplete. The infotainment system in the cab was also incomplete. Instead, for the purpose of the unveiling event, tablet computers or other computer screens were mounted into the areas where the screens for the infotainment would be, and the screens were set to display images created to have the appearance of infotainment screens with speedometers, maps, and other information displayed. By the way, jumping in here again, some of you guys may recall a video online from the unveiling event. Trevor's actually in there with a reporter, somebody's interviewing him, and he's pretending like everything's real. He's like, this is real, this is real, this is a real truck. And he touches the display and nothing happens. That was a moment where I went, hang on a minute. This is not responding to his input. I didn't say anything about this at the time, but now we're learning that this was just basically a loop of infotainment, looking like there was a GPS, looking like stuff was actually going on, but it wasn't even interactive. It's basically like they stuck a bunch of iPads on there with some pictures just running over a loop. The truck was towed onto the stage at night prior to the event, and the screens and lights were powered by an external battery and a power cord running under the truck to the wall. An air line had to be connected to the vehicle to keep the truck's air suspension and air brakes working because there was a slow leak in the truck's air supply. And it just gets even worse. Nikola personnel operated the truck's headlights at the event by remote. During the event, conman Milton falsely claimed that the Nikola 1 was fully functioning and could be driven. Milton stated, quote, "We will have a chain on the seats to prevent people from coming in just for the safety, so we're going to try to keep people from driving off. But this thing fully functions and works, which is really incredible." I mean, once again, look at Trevor projecting here. This thing fully functions and works. Idiot. And now we talk about the infamous video. I'm sure all of you already know what went on here, but this is just amazing and there's some scathing new details. In order to accomplish this feat with a vehicle that could not drive, the Nikola 1 was towed to the top of a hill, at which point the, quote, driver released the brakes, and the truck rolled down the hill until being brought to a stop in front of the stop sign. For additional takes, the truck was towed to the top of the hill and rolled down twice more. Additionally, the Nikola 1's door, which had been constructed using minivan parts, had to be taped up during the shoot to prevent it from falling off. I mean, for fuck's sake, they didn't even get the door right. Because the Nikola 1 had not been tested and was not safe, and indeed could not operate, certain precautions were taken before towing the vehicle to the commercial shoot. In particular, the turbine, which was designed to run on natural gas, and batteries were entirely removed from the vehicle to mitigate risk of fire, explosion, or damage. Following the commercial shoot, Nikola's Twitter account tweeted the following: "Behold, the Nikola 1 in motion. Pre-production units to hit fleets in 2019 for testing." By the way, if you guys don't know, I'm recording this video in 2021, and this hasn't happened. Fancy that. The Nikola hydrogen electric trucks will take on any semi-truck and outperform them in every category: weight, acceleration, stopping, safety, and features, all with a 500 to 1,000 mile range. An article was published in a widely read business magazine reporting, in substance, that the Nikola 1 was not functioning at the December unveiling event. Following the publication of the article correctly and accurately reporting that Trevor Milton had falsely stated that the Nikola 1 prototype was fully functional when it was not, Milton published several tweets criticizing the article, accusing its author of lying, and threatening legal action. Milton then texted a member of Nikola's board of directors regarding the article and stating that, among other things, quote, "share value went up after my response." Kind of get the idea that Meltdown Milton was a little bit fixated on the stock price and nothing else. As I said, Nikola stock fluffer, executive stock pumper, and so on. False and misleading claims regarding the Badger. In order to give investors a false impression of the status of the Badger's engineering and development, Meltdown repeatedly stated that Nikola engineered and built the Badger from, quote, "the ground up," as a clean sheet vehicle using Nikola's in-house components and intellectual property. And he also stated that the building of the prototype vehicles was complete and that they were real trucks. I mean, once again, look at this idiot projecting. Oh, dude, real trucks. Thanks for letting us know that they're real trucks, you fucking idiot. In truth, and in fact, at the time Trevor Milton announced the Badger, Nikola had little more than concept sketches and renderings. I mean, Again, I mean, I called this on the channel. It's like, hello guys. Anyway, when Nikola started working on a quote prototype, it did not engineer the vehicle from the ground up, but rather hired third-party vendors to build a show truck by modifying pickup trucks manufactured by a large automobile company and employing third-party components. And here's a few quotes from moron Milton on television talking about the Badger. Quote, "We are building it from the ground up. We do our own batteries. We do our own frames. We do our own vehicles from the ground up. Our own inverters, our own infotainment. You know, the cool screens. So ultimately, the entire truck from the ground up is designed by Nikola." In or about February 2020, Trevor Milton continued to seek an OEM partner to develop the Badger, for which Nikola had performed no significant engineering. Through the first quarter of 2020, however, Milton's efforts to secure an OEM partnership for the Badger were not successful. Production of Badger prototypes was outsourced at Milton's direction to third parties, with one vendor contracted to create the upper body of the vehicles and another to build the chassis. Nikola purchased several Ford F-150 pickup trucks, a highly popular model to which Milton had claimed his Badger would compare favourably, to use as donor or surrogate vehicles, and used the vehicle's chassis and bodies as the base for constructing the Badger prototypes. A lot of people picked this up at the time. The Badger basically looked like a Ford F-150. If you look at these two things side by side, they're almost identical, and here we see why. At Milton's direction, and with his approval, engineers working on the Badger prototypes took steps to hide from the public that Ford donor vehicles were used to produce the prototypes. Seems legit. Although neither of the prototypes was designed to operate on hydrogen fuel, Milton directed that they be fitted with hydrogen fueling ports to make it appear as though they were. ADIQ Milton made false and misleading public statements describing the Badger as, quote, real and, quote, fully functioning. I mean, how hard can you project? Holy shit, my man. Despite the fact that Nikola had not yet built anything, Milton stated, quote, "We built this thing to be a true vehicle. It is based on, quote, $1 billion of knowledge from Nikola's semi-truck program. The truck can go 700 miles in a real environment." I think by real environment, Meltdown Milton means his imagination, just saying. "And it can whoop a Ford F-150, whoop a Silverado, whoop a Dodge Ram." Milton promised that at the truck's unveiling, he would show off a, quote, real truck. I just can't deal with this, man. That is, quote, fully functioning, not one of those, quote, pushes everyone puts out there as a fake vehicle to show everyone what they're doing. I mean, fucking hell, dude. This is literally what happens when you have an IQ of 80 and you think it's 160 and you think you're fooling the entire world. Milton described the Badger as a, quote, fully functioning vehicle inside and out. HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and everything. Windows, all of it works. A real truck. Not just some mock-up thing that other people have done. Oh, this is just incredible, guys. I don't think we're ever going to see anything like this again. I mean, really. I mean, I've got to give a round of applause to Trevor. I mean, at least there's some entertainment value here, if nothing else. What an idiot. Okay, compose yourself again. Trevor Milton announced on Twitter that Nikola was going to start taking reservations for the Badger on June 29th, 2020. On or about June 9th, 2020, in response to a question about when the, quote, first prototype will be produced, Milton tweeted, quote, already. As noted, in truth, and in fact, as of June 8th, 2020, Nikola only had renderings of the vehicle and concept sketches. Oh, the audacity, man. The morning following the announcement by Trevor Milton that Nikola would take reservations for the Badger, Nikola's stock opened at $42 per share, $7 above where it had closed the prior day, and $9 above the price when it went public less than a week prior. And again, I just want to jump in here. I literally created a handful of videos specifically on the Nikola Badger with my hallucination that it solely existed to pump up Nikola's stock price and that it would never actually be produced. It was to lure in dopey retail investors. Yes, that's a direct quote, dopey retail investors. And turns out that's exactly what happened. There's an important lesson here. The red flags were there from day one. It's really important to do your homework. Unless, of course, your, quote, investing style is just gambling at the stocks casino, in which case, go for your life. But I mean, really, one or two renderings, a little bit of BS in a few tweets and people just start buying up the stock. This was so obviously vaporware, so obviously engineered specifically to pump up the stock price, allegedly. Trevor Milton issued several tweets making claims about how the Badger would use the water created as a byproduct of the hydrogen fuel cell. God, this shit is so funny. Milton tweeted that the Badger uses most all of it for our windshield washer fluid and a little bit for clean, pure drinking water. Quote, Yes, you heard that right. We will have a drinking fountain in our truck using the hydrogen byproduct water for the drivers to have nice, cold, clean, pure drinking water. This is possibly my favourite part of the entire indictment. In fact, at that point, Milton had not discussed with Nikola's engineers the idea of using fuel cell byproduct as washer fluid or drinking water, and several days later, I can't do this. I can't fucking do this. And several days later, attempted to determine if it was even possible by searching on the internet. Can you drink water from a fuel cell? Within days of Nikola starting to take reservations for the Badger, Milton tweeted that the most expensive reservation was, quote, sold out, thereby creating the misleading impression that the Badger sales were going well, which they were not. Nikola received approximately 2,411 pre-orders. Nikola received approximately 249 additional orders on or about June 30th, approximately 87 on or about July 1st, and approximately 124 on or about July 2nd. After online speculation that reservation numbers were not being released because they were low, just jumping in here, I was among those speculators. In fact, I actually prophesized that before we even heard that pre-orders were being accepted, that Trevor Milton would be unwilling to unveil them if they suck shit, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Milton tweeted that the, quote, $5,000 Nikola Badger deposit package had sold out. No one at Nikola knew of Milton's plans to announce that the package had been sold out, and after he tweeted, Nikola employees had to scramble to remove the package from the company's website. On an Instagram live video, Milton stated that the Badger was, quote, a real truck. I can't, every time it gets me, Milton stated that the Badger was a real truck, comes from $1 billion program, and, quote, is legitimate. Milton then asked rhetorically, in an apparent reference to the criticisms he was receiving on social media, quote, why do I not show the Badger right now? Answering his own question, Milton stated, quote, because I don't have to. And why else? Because it's marketing. So go get a degree in marketing. Learn what it's like. On or about September 8th, 2020, Nikola and the OEM partner announced a strategic partnership. Just jumping in here again, this is General Motors. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, how incompetent the leadership is at this company. The CEO should have resigned in disgust and embarrassment and shame over this. Of course, Mary Barra didn't resign. The entire due diligence team should probably also have resigned in shame, disgust, and embarrassment. And of course, they didn't. They're still all at the company, as far as I'm aware. These morons partnered with this company to build a vaporware product that didn't exist, that only existed to pump up the stock price. There was people on YouTube like me already claiming exactly what was going on here. We'd already seen the fraud. We'd already seen the lies. And General fucking Motors failed to notice. Oh, and it gets even worse. These same morons, General Motors, also partnered with Fraudstown Motors. That's a whole other can of worms. But I tell you what, if you own GM stock, I just have one question. What the fuck are you doing? Seriously, this is the level of leadership of this company, the level of diligence. In my opinion, this partnership was a move of absolute desperation to try to capture some EV clout, to remain relevant, and just shows how screwed these idiots are. They've got no idea what they're doing. Bad sign. Like I've said in the past, General Motors will be bankrupt before the decade ends. Mark my words. In an article published by Meltdown on a social media networking website, Meltdown stated, quote, most hydrogen that Nikola makes is on the freeway. This is near the main federal transmission lines where the voltage is incredibly high, allowing for continuous output. Nikola uses energy transmitted on the federal transmission lines before we enter the utility. We buy this clean energy directly from wind, solar, and hydro facilities directly. This allows us to get sub 4 cents per kilowatt hour 20-year agreements on the freeways. In truth, and in fact, Nikola had not produced hydrogen anywhere, including on freeways or near main federal transmission lines, nor had Nikola purchased any energy for producing hydrogen. Teabag Milton stated that when Nikola first started, hydrogen production stations, quote, were going to be 50 to 60 million, but now Nikola is, quote, down to, 14 million bucks due to the, quote, standardization of a hydrogen station. In truth, and in fact, Nikola had not built a single hydrogen production station, much less standardized hydrogen production stations. And once again, I pointed this out, many other people did on Twitter and YouTube as well. People are like, what are you talking about, you moron? You haven't, but like, this, oh, dude. Let's just move on. False and misleading claims regarding in-house technology. In order to induce retail investors to buy the stock, thereby supporting the stock price, Milton exaggerated Nikola's in-house development of batteries and other components and falsely stated that the company made parts in-house when it did not. June 3rd, 2020, the same day that Nikola officially started trading on the Nasdaq, Milton tweeted out a link to a podcast interview during which he claimed that Nikola did its, quote, own powertrains, battery management systems, and controls in-house. In response to a tweet that another company, quote, supplies the batteries, Milton tweeted, quote, we do our own batteries at Nikola and have since day one. Again, I just want to jump in here. I mean, we're almost done here, but can you just fathom the amount of bullshit that has come out of this guy's mouth? It is incredible. I mean, like I said, we're never going to see anything like this again. At least I hope not. Milton tweeted, quote, all the technology, software, controls, e-axle, inverters, etc. we do internally. Speaking of doing internally, Trevor, don't drop the soap while you're in jail. Let's continue. Milton tweeted, quote, we make the entire pack like the top guys do. We do have an OEM making our truck, but all internals are Nikola's IP. Batteries, inverters, software, over-the-air updates, infotainment, controls, etc. We own it all in-house. And again, more lies from Trevor. Milton stated that Nikola does, quote, all the e-axle design in-house, all the gears, the gear reductions, the thermal, the cooling, even the controls that go with it, and also the inverters as well. Quote, all inverters on the Nikola truck are probably some of the most advanced software systems that I know of anywhere in the automotive world. Why do I know that? It's because other OEMs are asking us to use it. Me. Well, I guess his motto is go big or go home, and that includes on the bullshit. These statements, and other similar statements that Trevor Milton made in interviews and on social media, were false and misleading. In truth, and in fact, although Nikola has partnered with various companies to try to develop proprietary battery technology, these efforts have not been successful, and Nikola had not successfully developed at any time relevant to this indictment battery technology internally, and the batteries it planned to use in its semi-trucks were developed and manufactured by third parties. Nikola also had not produced an inverter in-house, and the inverters it planned to use in its semi-trucks were developed and manufactured by third parties. False and misleading claims regarding reservations for Nikola's semi-trucks. With the exception of a reservation for approximately 800 semi-trucks, which is binding provided that Nikola meets certain conditions, these reservations are non-binding and cancelable at any time for any reason. Now, I just want to jump in here and clarify. Of these 800 binding reservations, when you actually look into the terms in their filings, you discover that these pre-orders can be cancelled if Nikola fails to meet all sorts of different criteria, including delivering on the specs they promised, so that's pretty easy. Oops, sorry, we don't have the range we promised, we can't deliver, therefore pre-orders get cancelled. The timing of the deliveries as well, oops, sorry, we're a little bit late, you can cancel as well. So even these, not really that binding either. I thought that was an important piece of context, but let's continue. Trevor Milton has repeatedly misstated the nature of Nikola's reservations to suggest that reservations are firm and binding. These statements are inconsistent with the fact that approximately 13,200 of the approximately 14,000 reservations, remember those 800, you add that to 13,200, literally every single reservation, a little bit loose, are non-binding and cancelable at any time. Trevor Milton stated, we don't build on speculation, we build on orders. We're very similar to like Airbus or Boeing, where we're sold out for many, many years. We're the only company in the world that is sold out for many, many years. So brazen. It's all based on orders. I think that's the reason Nikola is worth so much money today. During a podcast interview, the host referred to Nikola's reservations as, quote, letters of intent. Milton stated that he wanted to correct that characterization and that the reservations were, quote, not letters of intent, they're actually contracts. Milton further stated, yeah, billions and billions of dollars with the contracts. So I want to be clear about that because a lot of people have thought that it's just like a non-committal thing. It's not. These are like sign on the dotted line, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars in orders. Jesus Christ. Milton's false and misleading statements induced retail investors to purchase Nikola's stock. After Trevor Milton made false and misleading statements regarding Nikola's products and capabilities, tens of thousands of retail investors purchased Nikola's stock, and many ultimately suffered significant financial losses. Hopefully these folks have learned a lesson. Don't believe everything you hear, especially when it involves putting your hard-earned cash on the line. The value of Nikola's stock plummeted after the fact that certain of Milton's statements had been false and misleading was disclosed to the market in or around September 2020, aka in the aftermath of the Hindenburg research report. Shout out to Nathan, what a legend. Nikola, the company, tacitly admitted most of the things that Trevor said were actually bullshit, and the market didn't like hearing this, obviously. As a result, investors, including thousands of retail investors who were the targets of Milton's fraudulent scheme, suffered substantial losses, in some cases totaling in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars and compromising their financial security or retirement savings. Statutory allegations. Trevor Milton, the defendant, willfully and knowingly, directly and indirectly, used and employed in connection with the purchase and sale of securities, aka stock, manipulative and deceptive devices and contrivances in violation of Title 17, Code of Federal Regulations, Section 240, 10b/5, by employing devices, schemes, and artifices to defraud, making untrue statements of material fact and omitting to state material facts, engaging in acts, practices, and courses of business which operated and would operate as a fraud and deceit upon persons, to wit, Milton engaged in a scheme to defraud investors in Nikola through false and misleading statements regarding the company's product and technology development. Count 2. Securities fraud. Trevor Milton willfully and knowingly executed a scheme and artifice to defraud persons in connection with securities of an issuer with a class of securities. Again, he engaged in a scheme to defraud Nikola stock investors by means of false and fraudulent pretenses, representations, and promises. And count 3, the final charge, wire fraud. I won't repeat the same stuff. It's basically the same thing relating to wire fraud. And now, possibly the most juicy part of the entire indictment. This is so important, and I'm really happy to see this is included. Forfeiture allegation. Pay very close attention, guys. As a result of committing one or more of the offences charged in the counts 1 through 3 of this indictment, Trevor Milton shall forfeit to the United States all property, real and personal, that constitutes or is derived from proceeds traceable to the commission of said offences, including, but not limited to, a sum of money in United States currency representing the amount of proceeds traceable to the commission of said offences that the defendant personally obtained. Okay, translation. Trevor has to give back everything that he gained by lying to, misleading, deceiving investors, and pumping up Nikola's stock price. That includes houses, boats, his private island, his cash, everything. And it gets even better. Substitute assets provision. If any of the above described forfeitable property as a result of any act or omission by the offendant, A, cannot be located upon the exercise of due diligence, B, has been transferred or sold to or deposited with a third party, C, has been placed beyond the jurisdiction of the court, D, has been substantially diminished in value, or E, has been commingled with other property which cannot be divided without difficulty, it is the intent of the United States to seek forfeiture of any other property of the defendant up to the value of the forfeitable property described above. In other words, if they can't get everything back to the equivalent value of all the money that this dickhead scammed from investors, they're going after all of his other assets that maybe had nothing to do with this, maybe purchased from the proceeds of previous business sales, etc. In short, Trevor Milton is absolutely I really genuinely feel for the retail investors who were conned by this unethical steaming pile of human excrement known as Trevor Milton. I really do. I feel terrible. I hope that people can learn from this. I hope that people watching can identify some of the signs of a con man or con woman, and also understand how incredibly important it is to verify everything you hear, especially when it's coming from a position of, quote, authority, a CEO, a government official, a priest, a PhD, an academic, a scholar. Skepticism is an incredibly important, critical tool in life if you don't want to be misled. And it doesn't just apply to investing, but every aspect, health, relationships, you name it. I'll continue to keep you guys and girls posted with progress on this case. It's going to be very interesting, and I hope we can all learn a few valuable lessons along the way. And just finally, I'm going to leave you guys with one of the most ironic things I think that we'll ever have on record said by Trevor Milton.
Okay, this next one's from Z. I bet $150 on Trevor going to jail before the Badger's out. Thumbs up. That was him, not me. That was his thumb. That's $150. You know what, Z? I'll take you up on the bet. And I bet there's a lot of people online who would take you up on the bet too. $150 coming my way if you'll actually pay up. You probably won't. You're probably stuck in your mom's basement with your headphones, trolling around and just hating the world. I bet that's what you're doing. So you probably won't even pay. But I'll bet you $150 coming my way.
And with that, I throw over to you guys and girls. Let me know in the comments below. How long, if any time at all, do you think Trevor Meltdown Milton will spend in prison? I'm Stephen Mark Ryan. This is Solving the Money Problem, and I love you all. And don't forget the BlockFi Bitcoin Rewards credit card, where you can earn 1.5% Bitcoin back on every purchase. There's a link in the description. You can also earn up to $250 in crypto bonuses when funding a new account on BlockFi, also linked below. And finally, don't forget your free stocks with WeBull and Stake, also linked in the description. These great offers also help out the channel. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, if you have any ideas for future videos, let me know. I read all your comments. P.S. If you're still watching, you're awesome. If you'd like early access, exclusive videos, regular Q&As, our private Discord server and more, consider supporting the channel at patreon.com/solvingthemoneyproblem so I can keep creating content for you guys. There's a link in the description. You can now also become a member of the channel for some exclusive perks. To learn more, click the join button next to subscribe. And don't forget to check out our merch store. Either way, the best form of support is you being here and watching, so thanks again.